Marco Marisano posted a meme on Facebook showing a picture of Anne Frank, which alluded to the mandates and drew a connection to the Holocaust. I then learned that he was being accused of being insensitive and was threatened with being punished for his alleged insensitivity. Insensitivity to who? To Jews? To anyone who has been personally affected by the Holocaust, the parallels to the executive mandates couldn't be more glaring. I'm quoting the post because unfortunately Mr. Marisano, after being accused of being insensitive, apologetically removed it. The post showed a picture of Anne Frank's face. Above her head was the statement, "The people who hid Anne Frank were breaking the law." Under her picture it said, "The people who killed Anne Frank were following the law." Heading the whole picture was the statement, "Substitute law with executive orders or mandates." And the line on the bottommost area of the meme said, "The law is not a moral compass." I am a Jew and a daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I saw the post and it couldn't be more spot on.
Yes.
Nazi Germany and the Holocaust and its stated coercive totalitarian measures that are being mandated in our country has led to where we are today, with the othering and attendant cruelty and disregard for the right to personal, religious, and bodily sovereignty. Both the Holocaust and what is happening now was caused by the same disease, an astonishing and horrifying loss of moral compass. As a Jew, I was heartened by his post, because by posting it, it showed that he had a deeper understanding of why our country is in the divided, pained, and cruel-hearted state it is now in. And with it, he shined the sanitarian cancer that is in our society. A cancer that has been spread through the established media through an incessant and ongoing propaganda campaign of lies, just like in Nazi Germany.
Yes.
In both of them, it resulted in people en masse losing their moral compass. The very fact that he was ridiculed and harassed for sharing his personal perspective is chilling. It's frighteningly reminiscent of the methods the Nazis used to shame and ridicule the Jews in the lead-up to the Holocaust. The way you boil a lobster in its shell is how the Jews were treated in Germany. You start with
Excuse me, Ms. Lazarus, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can the officers please remove this gentleman? He's right here. Can you please remove him from the auditorium?
Are you going to reprimand these teachers for speaking up and interrupting her?
The way you boil a lobster in its shell is how the Jews were treated in Germany. You start with just a small flame by creating seemingly minor discriminations. Little things like the Jews being told they couldn't swim in a pool, so they accepted it and went to swim in a lake. Just like now. The unvaccinated are allowed to eat in New York City, but not in a restaurant. And just like in Germany, there were some Jews that saw...
Okay, excuse me, Ms. Lazarus.
Please.
I'm sorry.
He gave him the finger.
Point of order.
That guy gave him the finger.
Can you please remove him from the auditorium, officer? Now, we're going to recess.
And just like in Germany, there were some Jews that saw what was coming and escaped. Here, Americans that were paying attention saw what was coming and ran to other states and countries in order to live their lives free of coercive mandates and fears. The Nazis were adept in mass psychology. They knew that they had to heat the water in increments so that each increase of heat was still bearable until the heat was so high the Jews, like lobsters, were being scorched alive. The Jews that remained in Germany didn't wake up until it was too late, and many of their fellow countrymen turned their heads in apathy. Today, the unvaccinated are harassed, ridiculed, railroaded, and fellow vaccinated Americans turn their heads in indifference to the cruelty. When the unvaccinated stand up in protest of their human rights being trampled on, Their fellow vaccinated countrymen are not standing beside them in common human compassionate solidarity. After all, they are comfortable and they have more important things to do, like go to the Super Bowl or go to a bar with friends. It took years of scapegoating the Jews in Germany by saddling them with creeping restrictions to fully install the Nazi
Ms. Daughters, I'm
totalitarianism.
just saying you have 30 seconds left.
She's got a minute and a half. I've been timing it.
The same incremental pattern was used on us as Americans. First, we were told 2 weeks to flatten the curve, then masks, then the lockdowns, the closure of schools and churches, the promise of soon getting back to normal after the magic shot that only needed to be taken by a certain percentage of us, and then we'd have normal back. And then we were told that more of us needed to take the experimental shot, which was safe, despite the fact that all the animals in previous animal trials for mRNA vaccine died horrible deaths. But nevertheless, and only then would life be normal
I'm sorry,
again.
your time is up.
But keep your masks on because the vaccination can shed.
I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you.
My name is Lori Lazarus. I'm Shulamit's husband. I'm continuing where she left off. And the promise of being taken off of the pot was dangled again and again over us, distracting us from the hand increasing the flame. And with each degree we adapted to, just like the Jews in Germany, God-given rights were taken from us. Hitler was a genius of propaganda and created media campaigns that portrayed distorted caricatures of Jews with rats crawling on them and posters around the country so that it would cause fellow Germans to look at the Jews with revulsion and contempt. That's exactly what our media has done here to the unvaccinated. But first, they had to bypass our critical thinking by first instilling terror in trusting Americans by manipulating the COVID death numbers and graphics, and then seeding the idea that each person other than you is a walking disease to increase our fear. It made those of us who didn't know better clamor for a vaccine, anything to get back to being able to breathe freely without terror again. And those same trusting Americans didn't realize that there was a Mengele-style experiment that was being perpetrated with a vaccine that has now been shown to cause over 1 million serious, life-changing vaccine injuries and over 200,000 deaths, among them now our children. And when the lobster instinctively resisted being put in the pot, it was forced in with an incessant and ongoing media campaign of contempt and fear-mongering against the unvaccinated that encouraged criticism from fellow Americans and rejection of them that has led to fractured families, depression, and isolation. The Nazis perfected this formula. First, objectify, then vilify, then you can rationalize exterminating them. Those of us who know the Holocaust recognize the pattern and have been trying to ring the alarm bell. In fact, those of us who carry within us the living memories of the Holocaust, the shadow of the Nazi boot was visible 2 years ago. In the beginning, the media fear-mongering was so relentless that it accomplished pitting neighbor against neighbor so that people were calling 911 to turn someone in for walking on the street, and police were called and came to people's homes, treating them like criminals if they had a play date for their child. In Nazi Germany, neighbors and family members were encouraged to spy on each other. And now it's happening all over again. It's no different today with the administration telling you to look at your family members for any possible signs of extremism and encouraging you to look at their devices to see what apps they have been on and what they are posting and saying. The executive mandates for vaccination and proof of vaccination have created a two-tiered society that portrays the unvaccinated as selfish, threatening disease spreaders, when in fact many studies show that the vaccinated are spreading the variants, which is only logical since vaccination puts pressure on the virus to survive and forces it to create vaccine-evasive variants of itself. The very ones now that are infecting the vaccinated because the vaccinated are now proven to have weaker immunity with each spike-inducing shot. The very spike that was created by those in our government in concert with China. Up till now, you've been comfortable and felt secure in your homes. You've never known the terror of being ripped out of your home, but that's exactly the plan the CDC has for all people they deem to be high risk, to keep them away from those they deem to be low risk. They call it the shielding approach. We've given you all a copy of it. It's been on their website since the beginning of the pandemic. This should concern all of us. The CDC has quietly changed the definition of vaccine and herd immunity and rectified the actual deaths from COVID from the inflated ones. So, don't be fooled because it says the shielding approach is about COVID. Remember, we were warned by Bill Gates that COVID is not the only pandemic that we'll be exposed to. In fact, Mr. Tedros from the World Health Organization weeks ago publicly said that there are now cases of a new virus called Marburg. And just recently, we were told of a new highly virulent strain of HIV that is circulating. Look at the regulation that the New York governors just installed. A similar bill was removed because of the public outcry
Excuse me,
against it.
Mr. Lazarus, you have 30 seconds. Thank you.
Public outcry against it, and the new governor circumvented the legislative process by creating a regulation. Laws are crafted to serve the authority and change when it no longer serves them. Pandemic internment camps are now being prepared around the world. They are in Canada and Australia and other countries right now. If you're a New York State resident, the new governor of New York just gave herself the authority in any possible health issue, which she
Excuse me,
deems.
Mr. Lazarus, your time is up.
Thank you.
Process go from Liberty. Continue on. Continue. If you're a New York State resident, the new governor of New York just gave herself authority in any possible health issue which she deems to be contagious to remove you or anyone in your family she deems to be might likely be, even if asymptomatic, from your home and separate you from your family for as long as they want in a camp. Let's go. In Nazi Germany, the Jews thought if they used false documents, they could move through Germany and live a life with some freedom. Those who were caught were punished. In our country, the unvaccinated are forging cards to be able to pass as vaccinated so they can live their lives not feeling like second-class citizens. And if they're found with false cards, they can be fined with large fines and put in jail. Of course, you know nothing about having your organs cut out while you're still alive or your teeth removed without anesthesia for the gold fillings, because after all, you're a Jew, which makes you just a useless bag of flesh.
You got this.
It's hard to even touch the idea of that kind of cruelty with our minds. Reports are coming out from nurses and doctors of conscience now who can't stand by and watch in silence anymore. And they're reporting the same kind of cruelty being perpetrated here in our hospitals. The unsuspecting people that go to the hospitals who are really sick and need care are being forced to have remdesivir. And that has shown to cause kidney failure and failed FDA approval for COVID, and was reinstated as the only medication that is approved for hospital care of really sick COVID patients. This is forced extermination. It happened to a relative recently. He was on remdesivir and died. Can you see it yet? Doctors who know what will in fact save their patients have had their hands tied by government-driven hospital policy. And those who have tried to help their patients are being threatened with the loss of medical licenses and have had to watch their patients die or give up their patients. Reports are coming out that the really sick are having food and water held from them and are being put into medical coma and on ventilators against their will. And when in horror, their families find out and want to get their loved ones out of the hospital, which is methodically and cruelly killing them, the family is prevented from doing it, and it has to get a lawyer to get them out. It should be. And many times their loved ones die before that's accomplished. people that perpetrated the Holocaust acted with cruelty that's virtually impossible for compassionate human beings to imagine, yet that same form of cruelty is being expressed in our country now. And it's not being hidden anymore. Not only is it not being hidden, but it's being cheered. Now the medical system has nurses saying if a person is unvaccinated, they should just go home and die. That's a quote. And a Mayo Clinic doctor tweeted, "I go into a Zen state of meditation when I imagine kicking the unvaccinated in their tender parts." And vaccinated people laugh. Howard Stern, a huge media influencer, is quoted saying, "If the unvaccinated get COVID, just let them die, because I want to leave my house and go take pictures." And if an IVF clinic, a worker, was recorded saying the unvaccinated should die. That's another quote. A psychiatrist was recorded telling his patient that he has absolutely no respect for her because she didn't get vaccinated. And it's because of the selfishness of people like her that he got COVID after being vaccinated twice. And this is the kind of person who we send our emotionally vulnerable to. And a surgeon is quoted as saying that if you're unvaccinated, you don't deserve anesthesia for your surgery.
Excuse me, Mr. Sesko, you have 30 seconds left.
We have politicians in our country who plan to propose a bill to prevent unvaccinated from accessing health insurance. And leaders saying that the unvaccinated should not get any health care at all. The unvaccinated have been forced out of jobs, impoverishing them and their loved ones, leading to despair and suicide. In America, there is increasing discrimination against the unvaccinated, with media talking heads saying unvaccinated should be squeezed out of their lives and made to suffer for their selfishness, leading them.
Mr. Sesko, time is up. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your
In America, there is increasing discrimination against the unvaccinated.
Excuse me, can you state your name and
Yes,
address?
Maria Quigley of the Long.
Thank you.
In America, there is increasing discrimination against the unvaccinated, with media talking heads saying unvaccinated should be squeezed out of their lives and made to suffer for their selfishness, leading them to be barred from going into restaurants, sporting events, theater, museums, and concerts, giving them the very blatant message that they don't deserve to have the same quality of life that the vaccinated get to have. The unvaccinated is the new Jew. My mother, speaking on behalf of Shulam, she says, "My mother escaped to America to save her life. She was just 12 years old when her father grabbed her and my uncles out of the house to run for their lives from the Nazis. She had to walk in the pitch dark through forests with pus running down her leg because she was just out of the hospital for a thigh bone infection and she couldn't afford the time to heal. She walked with constant terror that even one step could snag a twig, because if you were caught and your brothers and father would be sent to a concentration camp. I got to hear her yell out at night in her sleep as she ran from the Nazis in her dreams, at times throwing herself out of the bed. She never forgot this terror. It haunted her dreams almost till the day she died. My father fought the Nazis in World War II. My grandparents, uncles, aunts had to be smuggled out in the middle of the night. Half of the children with my grandfather and half of the children with my grandmother, always trembling, holding their breath, trying to pass as non-Jews with false papers, with their hearts pounding, terrified of being identified as a Jew because it meant death or worse. My family was breaking the law by paying smugglers, and the smugglers were breaking the law by helping them escape to freedom. The people that killed Anne Frank were law-abiding Germans, following laws that were created to tyrannize and exterminate a group of people who were different. The exterminators were just following orders, like many of the business owners, hospital administrators, healthcare workers, and police officials in our own country today. The compassionate countrymen that hated Anne Frank were breaking the law. The law is not a moral compass. Our responsibility as human beings is to break laws that harm people. If if we turn our heads or are silent like people were in the Holocaust, then we are just as guilty. I, Shulamit, as a child of a Holocaust survivor, applaud and laud Mr. Amorisano for his courage to shine a light where many refuse to look. I felt thwarted by his post and dismayed that Mr. Amorisano was coerced into removing it. The very fact that that is chilling to me. The very fact that that is chilling to me. But what scares me even more is the blindness of those of you who don't or won't allow yourselves to see the parallels to the Holocaust that are right in front of your face. The fact is, we wouldn't be here where we are now if Americans had not let go of their moral compass. I don't say this with disrespect. I say this to wake us all up to the invisible hand that is incrementally tightening the noose of tyranny around all of our necks. We are at a precipice of conscience, and we still have time, but the window is closing fast. The Jews waited too long, but those of us who were touched by the Holocaust were indelibly imprinted by its power.
Excuse me, Mrs. Quigley, you have 30 seconds.
I'm almost finished, thank you. Never again is right now. Wake up before it's too late.